Got to be close to 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order.
It is.
Thank you all for coming. The agenda, meeting will be at the Robertson Hall Dining Room, 6 p.m., open to the public and available by Zoom. I got to remember to text Glenn because he's going to come on around 7. Okay.
He
Right.
told me that.
Any changes to the published agenda?
I do have one change. I would like to add a CA. Apparently the rec committee would like to put in an appointment for a new committee member. So I thought that would go with the library appointment.
CA, okay. And that's Rec Commission.
Correct.
Any other changes?
None for me.
Bob, anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. All right. Minutes of the April 3rd Select Board meeting. They've been published. We have copies. Any comments, folks?
No changes for me. Motion to accept is written.
Second.
All right. Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, I declare them accepted as published.
Hi, Robert. Is there any correspondence that you go over? You go over correspondence that you get? Any letters that go to the select board? Do you ever do that, or you just read them yourselves and comment on them?
Depends on, it kind of depends on what the issue is, Kevin.
If it's not employees or anything like that, I mean,
If it's what?
if it's not, something that you have to go into executive session or something, you cover things outside of that realm?
We cover them if it needs to have some action taken on it. We get a lot of comments about this, that, and the other thing, but
Yeah.
if it doesn't require any action on our part,
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Kevin, is there anything in particular you were thinking about or looking for?
Yes, but I'm not going to comment.
Okay.
Oh.
You have the ability to comment.
I know I do.
Okay.
all right, we'll declare them accepted as presented. Treasurer's report.
Revenue for April was $466,320.95. Say that fast 4 times. Expenditures were $274,596.81. Balance as of 4/30 was $1,007,572.38. Delinquent taxes owed to the town is $34,520.72.
Any questions? Any questions?
No questions. Move to accept it as submitted.
I'll second that.
Any
I
from you?
also would like to bring up that the ARPA reporting has been done for the year. It was done. We're just waiting to do the closeout when it's available. We don't know when that's gonna be. We don't know if we have to wait another year for that, or if they're gonna open it before next year. But we're just waiting for that to have everything done with the ARPA.
Okay, but our reporting is complete.
Our reporting is complete. There was an overpayment to the school amount that the state said we owed in September when the preliminary comes out. We got the final report and the school owes us a little over $18,000, and I'm picking that check up on Friday.
Wow.
Any questions? Comments? All right, let's declare them accepted as presented. Action items. Well, Jonathan, final report on the wastewater study, feasibility study.
I'm gonna connect to show some slides on the Zoom meeting. Great. So I can stand if people would prefer, or bounce back and forth. I'll start sitting in case that's okay. We were in January, at the January meeting for the 90% report presentation. We got some feedback on the 90% report, some questions, some comments, and we addressed those and have issued a final draft report that I'll hit the highlights of. I wasn't planning to cover in detail, but mainly just focus on the differences between the 90% report and the final report and where you would go from here. So this is what I had in mind for my personal agenda tonight, not the select board agenda. That we would, I can hit on what the potential action items for the select board to consider are, and then we can come back to them at the end. Recap the differences between the 90% report and here, talk about a potential project timeline, and go over questions. So I think the decision point we're at with the feasibility study report being complete is that we could now move on and do more design. You could take it and, you know, keep it as a record and not do anything more with it. That's decision one, is whether to, or decision two on here, I should say, is whether to do anything further as a result of this study. Number one is let me know whether you accept the report as is, or if you want more time for comments, and then I can issue it final and just get your agreement on the preferred alternative. So, and we'll talk about these later in a little more detail. So first will be the updates from the 90% report. And one of the things that happened over the course of the study was that there was a subdivision that wasn't of one parcel. So we changed the parcel numbers, which changed some of the data in our report. Pretty minor in terms of, it didn't change any of the big picture in terms of the wastewater study. We updated the property types to match the grand list category so that the data could be sorted by those types of properties. And there are some tables in the report that have the wastewater flows separated into those categories of commercial or residential, that type of thing. We updated the median household income data, and that didn't substantively change the report either. The village center is, and I guess the town overall is still below the statewide median household income. So that's basically a trigger point for whether you're eligible for certain types of funding, and you still are, according to that median household income criteria. We expanded the community engagement section to reflect the public meetings we've had. We updated the life cycle cost analysis sections of the report, the costs of construction, and we showed different examples. We showed examples of different levels of funding. 25% subsidy, 50% subsidy, no subsidy, and the effects of those different levels of funding on the costs to the users. We looked at how the preferred alternative could be broken into phases if you chose to start with a portion of the system and then add to it when there's already a system and people have interest in connecting. I could go over that in a little more detail, I think, coming up. And we updated the matrix of non-monetary factors to kind of reflect all those changes. And we added our conclusions and recommended the preferred alternative. So that's a quick overview of that. The important outcome is here's an illustration and a little summary of the preferred alternative. We looked at, going back to the 90% report, we looked at different ways of collecting the wastewater. We did not have a lot of options that remained viable for where you could send the wastewater. The two sites shown here on the map are two landowners who have said that they're okay with being considered as a potential disposal site. That was one of the criteria that weeded out some of the other potential disposal sites, among other things. And so we in the final report, we do a little more focus on different ways you could do this. And I probably need to bring this over with me if I want to point.
I can get it.
Okay. The essential alternatives we looked at when we're narrowed down to these two potential disposal sites were looking at using that site for disposal, looking at using that one, looking at using both, and then different levels of wastewater treatment based on that. And in the 90% report, we had looked at different ways to collect the wastewater, and we had already narrowed it down to that this was the preferred alternative, which is taking the effluent from people's septic tanks, and in the magenta section, it would be collecting that by gravity from people's septic tanks into a common shared effluent sewer, and then bringing that down to somewhere near the school where it would go into the disposal site or get some more treatment before it goes into the disposal site. The cyan lines are areas where people would have to pump into a shared effluent force main, so they'd have a pump after their septic tank, and then they would pump into a shared line. So that overcomes the issue that this is a high point in the system, and there's a river here. So it gets those people connected through a shared effluent force main. And one of the things that helps with a system like that is you have to account for future infiltration into your sewer system, and both of these methods help keep that amount that you have to set aside for infiltration lower. So anyway, it maximizes how much you can put into the wastewater systems that's actual wastewater from users. So looking at these two together, we looked at doing a higher level of treatment and using only the school site versus if we use both sites as leach fields, could we do a lower level of treatment? And when you compare the life cycle costs of those, the lower level of treatment with both sites in the long run ends up being the lower life cycle costs compared between those for the full build out of the system. So on paper, on the desktop review, right now based on what we know about those two sites, if you put in a recirculating sand filter system to treat the wastewater, those two would have about the same capacity as if you put in a full aerobic tertiary wastewater treatment system and used only the school site. And the tertiary wastewater treatment system uses more energy, costs more to maintain, needs a little bit more skilled operator. And when you factor all those things in, the two sites with the recirculating sand filter treatment end up being the lower life cycle costs. So that's a quick overview of how we got to that as the recommended alternative. It's okay if I sit back. I don't think I need to blink anymore. So that, at the full build out of that system, there's a capital cost of estimated in our study of 4.37 million. The present worth of the operation and maintenance costs, 2.95 million, and then there, in your life cycle cost analysis, you subtract out the salvage value of all of what you build to compare apples to apples, so that this ends up being the lowest net present value of a system per user, equivalent residential user, which is what ERU stands for. This would have the capacity to connect 89 equivalent residential users. An equivalent residential user is something that uses the same as a single family home. Think 3-bedroom, but when you connect this many people, the number of bedrooms actually doesn't matter. If it's a single family home, it's accounted at 245 gallons per day per equivalent residential unit, or per single family home. So for a commercial property, it's just a ratio to get it all into the same type of units, the ERU. So at that build out capacity, the capacity with a recirculating sand filter for treatment is 23,000 gallons per day roughly, based on what we know about the sites at this point, and which is enough to meet the demands of the study area with some allowance for growth and infiltration. And get into that in a little more detail, talking about the phasing. Sometimes, especially in towns that don't have a wastewater system to start with, it's good to start with a smaller part of your project and build it out from there. So we have these as examples in there of how you could phase a project. Ultimately, it's the select board's decision in a wastewater ordinance when you build the system of who connects and who doesn't, who is able to connect, or who. All of that needs to be a select board decision much later down the line. But these are examples that could be used. And so this example is, what if we connected all of the parcels from people who returned a survey early in this study that said they want to connect? And that matches up well with the potential disposal capacity of those two sites without any treatment beyond septic tanks. So you could collect the wastewater from those parcels when we tally up their flows. You could connect them to the system, not putting in any recirculating sand filter or anything yet, and they could start using those disposal sites. And then when the interest or demand or whatever for other people to connect is there, you could add the higher level of treatment, put in a recirculating sand filter for treatment, and increase the disposal capacity of those by up to 3 times. And so this figure is an illustration of that. The red parcels are ones that expressed an interest early on in connecting. And the yellow parcels are other ones that either had a well shield and leach field constraint, or have wastewater systems that are estimated to be over 30 years old.
But they didn't express any desire to connect, you're saying?
The ones in the yellow did not, I don't, some of them may or may not have, not all of them returned surveys. And that's correct though. The red are just the ones that already expressed an interest. The yellow didn't express an interest.
And what are the gray ones?
Those are properties that don't, in this illustration, they don't have either a well shield or leach field constraint, or may have a newer system that's under 30 years old, based on what we know. So those are examples of how you could phase in the construction of a system.
John,
Brian?
maybe just two quick questions. One is, how does the capital cost compare between the tertiary treatment and single site versus the scenario that you just put forward, just in terms of upfront costs?
Mm-hmm.
I know the life cycle is more favorable. I'm just curious what the initial, is it more expensive all the way around?
I'll have to double check
Okay.
to make sure I give you the right answer
Okay.
on that.
And then, I'm really interested,
I have it on
if it were less, it might be of interest just to
Yep.
weigh,
Yep.
upfront versus long-term cost choices. And then the second one is, if there were a commercial property introduced into this at all, are there some baseline estimates in that? I can't remember the detail of the report, but like, you said, you get 21 users on the initial front. If you threw in how do you calculate a commercial property impact on that if it were a restaurant or something like that?
So not all of those red parcels are residential. Some of them are, I think, mapped as commercial, at least in the grand list. And so their estimated flow is based on the type of use and how you would permit them for a wastewater system in the wastewater system and potable water supply rules that the state has. So if it's a restaurant, it's based on the number of seats and how many meals served a day. If it were a gas station, it's based on the number of pumps. If it's a retail store, it's based on the square footage, or if it's below a certain size, it's just a number. There's a fairly detailed list because they try in the wastewater rules, because they try to capture most of the things that exist in Vermont, so they can permit them. And then if there were any existing wastewater permits, we would have used the number right out of the wastewater permit.
I guess the underlying question is, like, if you add one let's just say you do like a 10-seat small restaurant cafe thing,
Mm-hmm.
are you quickly jumping from the 21 residences hooked up to needing to go to the second level pretty much right away? You know what I mean?
Right, so the phase one red parcels are, if all of those were connected, the additional treatment would be needed to connect anybody else. And if once you get into once a recirculating sand filter system was built, there would be capacity to also connect all of the, I say yellow, I guess those are more orange. All of the orange parcels, plus there would be about 6,000 gallons per day left over beyond those. And that's all based on what we know about the sites so far.
Thanks.
Yep.
So You're saying there'd be 6,000 gallons left over, so if I do the math at 240 gallons a resident, we're talking about another 30 connections.
Yeah,
Or
24,
thereabouts.
yeah,
Huh?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Oh, it's right on here, sorry.
Yep, no, that's okay.
Can I ask when was the initial survey set up? Do you remember? Because
Yeah,
it was a few years ago, right?
it was, I think 2 years ago, okay. Yep. So this table I just thought was a helpful summary for all of what we just talked about. The number of, what you could connect in phase one, what you could connect in phase two, the different flows. The infiltration allowance I've got on there is 1,020 gallons per day. If it was all a gravity sewer system that we looked at earlier, I think that a little more than tripled. And then I guess the other point I wanted to make about this slide is that if you look at the annual cost per user with an assumed 50% subsidy, that shows to me you need more than a 50% subsidy to make this affordable if it's all paid for by just the users.
Subsidy from where?
Subsidy is a common word used in the state revolving fund system for what a lot of us would think of as a grant. They can't call it a grant. Grants have different administrative requirements, but it's basically giving you the way they do a subsidy is that they give you a loan and you get reimbursed out of a loan during the time that you're spending money on building the system or on designing it, and at the end you only owe half of it back.
So the subsidy is through the town from the state,
Yes.
and that number's 2,900 for the end user's portion, or is it 5,800?
So that's per equivalent residential unit. So if you were a single family home connected to the system and about half the costs were covered by the state funding that you didn't have to pay back, it would still be left with that much per single family home.
1,400 or 2,900?
The 2,900 or the 2,230.
So the per home
Yeah.
is more like 5,800, 5,900.
Yep, and these are higher levels than most Vermont communities consider affordable, in my experience doing the studies. So you would need more funding either beyond the users or beyond 50% subsidy to help make it affordable to the users.
What
Is
is an
any-
affordable line that's typically used?
That definitely varies from community to community, but I always have in my head $100 a month, $1,200 a user.
Okay.
It could definitely vary from community to community. It depends on your needs and your resident, it's very, very.
Jonathan, are there any other grants or state money available for projects like this, other than what you just
Yeah,
mentioned?
the funding picture changes every year. There are multiple funding sources that can be applied to for funding. And that's how projects are currently being funded, is not just from one source typically. You typically need more than just the state revolving fund, where on the Waitsfield project right now, we have state revolving fund funding, some of it's ARPA grant. They're hoping for USDA rural development to have more than just a loan as well. And they've also applied for Northern Borders Regional Commission funding and Vermont Economic Development funding. There are a lot of potential sources that can be applied to projects like this. but it's a lot of work to go through to get it.
Sure.
And they're not all just taking the same application by reciprocity.
Of course.
A quick question for you, Jonathan, about the subsidies. Would the median income of our town affect that at all as far as our getting more money since we are below the median?
It
In your
helps
experience?
qualify you for those subsidies, and it would be favorable to all of them.
Sarah?
I'm curious about capacities. This started out with 78 parcels, and when you add up the 48 and 21, you don't get to 78. And part of some of the consideration that I've heard conversation about was perhaps more, infill in certain kinds of ways, which could increase that number beyond 78 potentially. But the capacity isn't there. Could you speak to that and help with our understanding that a little bit?
Let's see. So, it's, the 93 equivalent residential units is, not 93 parcels necessarily, because not all of them are homes. But that bottom line number is the projected, the 93 equivalent residential units is the potential capacity of it at full build out, which could be 93 single family homes, or it could be, some other mix.
Okay, so if they're not the same, we're not talking about the same numbers.
Right, it's not parcels, it's.
Right, so
yeah.
that 93, it's tempting to align it, although it shouldn't be, but that should then have sufficient capacity for what exists and perhaps some more.
Yes. Anything else on the preferred alternative and potential phasing?
The annual cost, that's just in perpetuity, or is that just for the payment days and so?
So it's an annualized cost. It wouldn't necessarily be that much every year. Some of those are some assumed significant maintenance you do after 15 years and that type of thing, and it's just spread out over 30 in the annualized operation and maintenance projection. So in theory, you could be managing it differently than paying that much every year. And some of the initial costs would not, your actual out-of-pocket, what you needed to pay for maintenance each year running the system isn't going to be that much in year one, but you'll still have the loan. And at this point, we're just looking at it as an annualized cost so you can compare the alternatives.
Jack?
Is there an equation that includes equity that is being built in over time?
That could be considered by the select board in your ordinance. It's not anything I've tried to project in a study at this point. And I saw the next agenda item is the wastewater committee. This type of thing that a committee could work on towards a recommendation to the select board is whether equity could be built in the rates. There aren't a lot of examples of that, but I think there may be some. So this is another, for example slide. This is a potential project timeline, and I mainly wanted to show this to see, so you could have an idea of how long it takes for the project to get built out. I think this is the fastest that it could proceed. You could go slower than this. And so if you were looking to do things as efficiently as possible, get something done as soon as possible, and you were to start with phase 1 of the project, the size of the system wouldn't require an indirect discharge permit yet, because you would be dealing with less than 6,000 gallons a day of wastewater. And so that actually could be done and permitted pretty efficiently, so you could be ready to build in 2026. If you were going on to do the full build out, there's a lot more that goes into permitting a system of more than 6,500 gallons per day of disposal. Those systems, you have to do some testing at the disposal sites to show that it's not going to have any effect on the nearest receiving water, and those types of, that testing takes a while to go through. So that would be projected out a little farther. And you could be building a phase 1 only type system as early as 2027. You could be building a larger system as early as 2028. Could be building nothing. But this is an illustration of this, about as fast as you could expect the process going.
Jonathan, give us an idea of timing. You say preliminary, if we was to approve that tonight, I'm assuming, preliminary engineering report and environmental document in 2025. However, that's probably not going to happen until we have a chance to digest a lot of this. So what are you looking at for, say, months for each one of these projects?
I think the only piece of that I can't really answer is that one of the things I would do first is some test pits out at the disposal sites. Go with an excavator, dig a hole, and characterize the soils and the seasonal high groundwater table. And part of what's required with the funding system is that those sites get cleared for archaeology before you can dig the test pits even. Not before you build the system, but before we go out and dig holes that could disturb archaeology. And that process right now is taking an unpredictable amount of time. And it's varying a little bit from the different projects I'm involved in. So that's the only part that I can say, if I'm not addressing that, I think it would take probably 6 months to get through your preliminary engineering report if it's just for if it's just for the phase 1 that you're looking to move on to build at this point. Actually, never mind. The PER could cover the full project, but have the phasing built into it as the preferred project. So still, I think that would be about 6 months if the variability of how long it takes to get archaeological clearance wasn't in there.
That's A&R.
It's Vermont Division for Historic Preservation.
Okay.
That takes a while. It took us over 2 months to have them review a site where we were changing one culvert to another. So.
Yep, yes. I have one that's much longer than that.
So, given that, that's one phase of it, but if that goes into 26, then final design, how long?
Final design, 9 to 12 months for the phase 1. It would take longer for the full build out.
All right, and that includes the IDR permit.
With the IDR permit, it's probably 2 years.
And that's the full system.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So 6 months plus 9 to 12, 18 months,
Yeah.
probably minimum
Yep.
from the time you get to go ahead.
Yep.
Questions, folks?
No.
Nope.
I think that we know it's a long process. All of the VLCT programs that I've gone to say 4 to 10 years to
Yeah.
final build out. So it's a long time.
I did have a slide in here on what I would recommend in the next steps if you were to move on. I mentioned archaeology, we would want to look at wetlands out at those 2 areas, do test pits, survey both of them. That's the field work. I think additional public engagement, the survey was done a couple of years ago, the public, survey, not the topo survey. I think it would be important to do an update to that on people's interest in connecting, people's interest in higher use of their land or something, the things that you'd want to have current input from the landowners on. And further discussions with the landowners, more of some sort of tentative agreement with them to allow you to build disposal systems on the sites. And then at least based on the test pitting and the survey, topographic survey, a preliminary hydrogeologic analysis of both sites. This is, these are very much on paper numbers at this point, and once we had test pits, you could get much more comfort with how much water you can put in the ground in those locations. And that could swing it back to, one site could be less favorable than the other, and it might change the conclusion of whether you use one or the other even. There might be that much difference based on the...
So is it, excuse me, is it a plan to have a mound system regardless? Because if you dig a test pit and go down 6 feet and you find groundwater, that's gonna change your whole thought process, isn't it?
It could be a mound. And it has to be pumped into it regardless. So the main difference when you're building a mound system for the disposal area is bringing mounds in. So no, it's not necessarily planned to be one at this point, but
Okay,
it could be.
okay. Now,
What's the price tag to get us through this stage?
I haven't developed one, but if folks wanted us to continue, we could draft that and submit it to the select board for review. Not looking for an authorization to do any work because we haven't prepared a proposal for it. But, it's good to have the check-in of whether you want to do that, whether you want us to go further with it. Yes, that's all I had, sorry.
Oh, sure. A quick question for you. What is the level of communication that you had with the 2 potential sites?
So I've talked with the facilities director at, I forget this Union District's name, but the Woodstock guy.
Joe Rigoli?
Yeah, and we got his permission to go out there, and we did some hand augers out there. So he would obviously need to go before the beyond him. It would have to be the district would have to approve something. He said it would need to be compatible with what they have for uses out there. It was cordial. The other landowner is said they were a proponent of the project and gave us permission to go and look at the site and do whatever's needed and just check in with them.
Thank you.
Whose land is that? The second site?
Harkins?
Is that Harkins?
It's the trust associated with the greenhouse folks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right, what's the opinion?
I think we need
I
to
don't
think.
think we're in a position to make a decision
No.
tonight.
I thought that's what the new committee is gonna be for,
That's
right?
right.
Right,
That's the hope anyway, to delve into this a lot more deeply.
all right. So Jonathan, I guess if the audience or Bob or Lisa have no more questions, you pretty much answered the ones that I had. The last one that I do have, the water that hits these sites, that's not gonna be treated and it's not gonna be discharged, is that correct? It's gonna be evaporated there or absorbed there or whatever.
So if it's coming from the septic tanks, it's getting that level of treatment. And it infiltrates into the soil. Your soil does some treatment also. There's bacteria in the soil, and part of why we have this separation from the water table is that so that there's enough time for the biological activity to break down what's in the wastewater, the viruses and pathogens and things. And when you get to the higher level of treatment, it's removing a lot more of the solids, and so it's already at a much lower concentration of the things that need to be broken down in the soil. So they're both receiving treatment, and then the IDR it stands for indirect discharge rule. When you are over 6,500 gallons per day, it's considered an indirect discharge to your nearest surface water. So the river is indirectly receiving it after it goes through the soil and eventually gets to there. And those indirect discharge rules protect your surface water that's receiving that indirect discharge from negative impacts.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Good.
All right, we thank you much.
thank you,
Great.
Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks. Make sure I don't end your meeting or something here. Share. Okay.
I should have made an amendment so we could sign this. Oh, okay.
It didn't come in time to get it on. Well, actually, it did, but
All right. Jonathan, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Item B, Reading Wastewater Committee.
Yes. So as of last month, we had 2 people that had volunteered for the committee. Over the last month, I've had 4 other people step up that would like to be members of this new committee. As we discussed at one point, the commitment will be for a year to determine the level of interest. Part of what Jonathan was saying, I can dovetail into that. Updating a survey and doing more one-on-one conversations with residents in the village. I think that receiving a generic survey versus a conversation probably influence some of the answers perhaps, maybe not, but I think that knowing somebody that you're talking to about this is a lot better than receiving a piece of paper in the mail. So we're gonna do this for a year, looking at funding, looking at alternatives. 4 of the 6 people who have volunteered are here in the audience tonight. We have Lisa Morrison, Jack Karsh, Tyler Dallas, and Sarah Koblinski. We also have Rich Grogan, who is a member of the ARPA committee and is part of a grant process for regional grants and fundings for these type of projects. and a gentleman named Mike Knoll that I've not met. He is a new resident in the village. He's a part-time resident at this point, I believe. And he also has, he's not, thank you, Sarah, full-time now. Ah, well, he said he was in Long Island, so I guess I just assumed. Okay. And so he also has a long background in working with the federal government in water projects. So I think we have a lot of good candidates, and I think at this point we just need to discuss whether anybody has any reservations about going ahead.
None whatsoever from me.
I do not, I don't know this Mike Noel. Where does he live?
Down across from the
Down
school.
across from the school.
Oh, right straight across.
Yeah, right, straight across from the
Okay.
school.
Blue House, red shutters.
Yep. He works in the last.
Ah, perfect. We had a cordial email conversation, but that was about it. I was hoping I would meet him here.
Lisa, I got Jack, Sarah, Rich, Lisa, and Mike. Who was the other one?
Tyler Dallas?
Oh, okay. That's who I was.
He's easy to miss.
Yeah.
Tiny guy.
He's so tiny. Here's my cheat sheet.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, it's your pleasure.
So at this point, I'd like to raise a motion to nominate these 6 people for the new wastewater committee.
Second, do we need to do anything to form a new committee, or has the committee already been formed and we're just trying to populate it now?
Basically, we're just trying to populate that. We can form a committee on the spot, so to speak. Any questions or comments from the audience or the potential, not potential, but soon-to-be committee members?
It
Okay.
sounds like a great group of people. My question, we talked about maybe having an alternate, so is it 5 and an alternate? And
Correct.
That's 6? And that's
Mike,
just to remind me.
At the point that I had the 5
Yeah.
full-time committee members, Sarah actually had spoken with Mike Knoll, and he reached out and offered to be the alternate. Yeah. I'm excited. Thank you all.
Last chance to bail out.
All right?
All right. All those in favor of the committee, as
Aye.
mentioned?
Aye.
Good to go.
Great. We'll connect all of you so you can decide when you'd like to start to meet, and then we would love to have an update monthly just as to how things are going and what you're working on.
They need to form with a chairperson and take minutes and agendas, and they need to be posted on the website. They need to follow the open meeting laws.
Okay.
So whoever's gonna reach out, we can figure out a time that the building's not in use if they wanna meet here.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll need basically need a chair and a secretary at a minimum from your committee. All right, we got library appointment on here, but I don't see Bill.
I'm here. I'm online.
Oh,
Sorry,
hi, Bill.
sorry, I can't.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. Sorry, I can't be there in person. Yeah, thanks a lot for the time today. So we have a vacancy with Vanessa Maxim having. Oh, look at me. With Vanessa Maxim having resigned. So we would like to put Rich Grogan forward to fill the vacant spot that we have. But obviously we need select board approval for it.
I'll make a motion to accept Rich to the library trustees.
Second,
I think I don't know where you went, Bill, but it's been moved and seconded. We're all in favor, I would guess. So I
Fantastic.
think you are good to go.
Thank you so much. And we always appreciate the select board support at the library. So thanks a lot. Have a good night.
thanks,
He
Bill.
will fill that position until the next town meeting, and then he'll have to run to fill it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to discuss that with you, Calista, too, so that I can,
Okay.
so that I understand it myself. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Rec Commission?
You gonna do that one now?
Yeah, she set it up as CA.
So, as we as well have a vacancy, Kelsey Coyle stepped away, and Tatiana Warner has volunteered to take over her spot, which would round us out to our 5 person.
I missed the name, John.
Tatiana Warner?
Tatiana Warner.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to put Tatiana into the place of, is it Kelsey, did you say? Yeah.
Second?
you didn't know anything about this ahead of time, right?
Not at all.
I would agree. I have no problem with that right here, so all in favor? I have a question.
Yes.
Have you looked at the clay or distributed any of it yet?
So I can give you a very brief update on all of that. Actually, just got the tree trimming, I believe, done, I'm gonna go inspect that today. Which actually, going back to the ARPA funds, I know we had, I believe, plus, I gave you an invoice or estimate, a quote on that, so I'll be getting hold of you with that bill shortly. The clay has not been moved yet. That is looking like 2 weekends from now. Dylan's a little busy at the moment, so, but we're gonna do a workaround here in a couple, let's see, I think it's the last weekend of May, first weekend of June, how that splits. We're gonna do a community work day, so there'll be some flyers coming out shortly and postings coming out. Because now we have, basically, other than the clay being spread out, we have all the parts and pieces we need, we just need some hands.
Okay, good. I bring that up because it's been through the winter and
Yeah,
probably got redistributed a little bit during all these heavy rains.
not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I have looked at it, so.
Yeah. My comment would be, we've gone this far down the road, so do it right, and if you end up needing another 2 or 3 yards,
Okay,
whatever, it's an easy trip over there and back. And
excellent. Okay, that's great to know, because it's very hard to, I mean, we made the initial estimate based on some people that had worked on fields before and what their guesstimate was, but it is a guesstimate,
Well,
so.
I just think that this far down the road, we might as well do it and do it correctly,
Great, yeah.
okay?
John picked up the new sign from down in Manchester, and it's gonna look wonderful. Looks really good.
Nice.
Good. All right, Glenn is on, so we'll go to highway status, and if you've read the agenda, looked at the agenda, there's a whole lot of stuff on here that probably won't be in future months, but I thought it was time to get a list of all the works and grants that we've got going for the highways and the deadlines. It's kind of hard to keep all of this in line, so, yes?
Did you miss any mitigations?
Did I miss what?
Miss a mitigation for town farm?
I did. We're not worried about that, bro.
Okay.
But wait, there's
I
more.
just was looking, that was extended to 9/14 also.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, there is one I missed, that she just brought up. Mitigation for town farm, to do a little bit more riprap work around the bridge up there. And that is 9/14/25. We got a, extension. All the mitigation was supposed to be done by July 14th. We got an extension because we got to get in the brook, and we can't get in the brooks until at least June 1st, some places maybe July. So we stretched that out to September. The stone chimney culverts, we're hoping to have them done this month, possibly next. Glenn will correct me if I stretch it too far, but we're hoping to get that done in the next couple or 3 weeks. Grasshopper culvert and town farm will be in September. I can't compete with that, so. The Millbrook stabilization, that is due to be done by 7/15. I'm not sure we can even get an extension on that, but we have one site left to do, and we have one site that needs a little tuning up after the rain this past weekend. And that's by John Sweener's house, above it a little bit. And then up by the Bailey's Mills Bridge. I talked with Don Gurney. He plans to get in there as soon after June 1st as possible. Grants and aid, this is work that the state gives us a grant on to, for water quality and protecting the water before, or slowing down the water and sort of straining it a little bit before it gets to the brooks. We have one that is going, we're meeting tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, with Mark, and they're the ones that work on these grants for us. Take the pictures, write the grant. They don't write the grant, but they follow the grant, take the final pictures and submit to the state. So we're meeting on the fiscal year 25 tomorrow morning, and that will be Jenny Road. Basically, Brian, from your place down as far as we can go with the money we have. If we get the fiscal year 26, which is down further, in time, we may continue on and get that done right after the 25. If not, it'll probably be next year. The ditch and culvert work on 20 Mile Stream is due 9/30/25. The Brown Schoolhouse culvert is due 12/31/26. The repaving on Tyson Road will be determined once it's awarded. Looks like a lot of work for the town crew, but the mitigation work on Grasshopper Culvert and Town Farm Bridge will be contracted. The stabilization for Millbrook is contracted. The Brown Schoolhouse culvert will have to be a contracted job. That's going to be a big culvert. And the repaving will be a contracted job, obviously, so that cuts down a lot of it. And if we get to the money for the 25-26 grant at the same time, it'll be up to Glenn whether he wants to try to do that himself or contract it out. Because that'll take us all the way down Jenny Road to Camp 10 Bear. So that's just so everybody can see it, and we will just put a completion date in here as we get things done. So Glenn.
He's there.
Hey Glenn, can you hear me?
He's muted.
Tell him to come off mute.
I don't think you can hear me. Send him a text.
He's muted.
If you can hear me, Glenn, you're muted, so for some reason.
He's trying to send me something.
I know he's got some updates to throw out there, so.
He's typing. He's trying to unmute. His computer's not cooperating.
Well, I don't know if he was going to bring this up or not, so I'm going to throw it out there. A few weeks ago, we met with Crown Point Excavation about crushing the gravel that we got from Millbrook when Gurney Brothers did some initial work. They took it all up to the town barn. They came up and took a look at it, and that, along with some other stuff that we've got there, was estimated to be about 3,000 yards, the equivalent of 3,000 yards as crushed, at about $8 per yard, which is about half price of what we're paying from the pits around town. And they're planning on doing that to sometime between the tail end of May and early June. So that will give us quite a good stockpile of what we would call crushed bank road gravel.
He's unmuted now.
You all set?
Okay, I got it.
Okay, you're up.
Really not much to say. Trying to get caught up on everything. After the ice storm, here it's set us back a bit, but we're getting there. Very few roads left to grade, so we're getting there.
Are you still cleaning brush out of the ditches?
Yes, we are, so yes.
Okay.
It's still moving right along.
Anything else you want to bring up? Seems how we finally got your voice.
Now everything's, like I said, everything's going along as best they can. I mean, we're getting there.
All right. I did give them an update on all the highway status stuff, Glenn, that we have talked about. Our work versus contracted work. I don't know if you got anything you want to add to any of that stuff?
No, I think you got it covered.
Well, I don't. I missed one, but anyway. All right, I also brought them up to date on the crushed gravel. And we also talked with the Alva Waste in Springfield, and they are we have a pile of old tires going back, I don't know how many years up there. And they are gonna take all of those tires at about half the cost of what it would cost us to get rid of a car tire at the transfer station. And there are a lot of truck tires there, so we're gonna clean those up, get rid of them. Crown Point Excavating has said that they will take all of the scrap metal at no charge to us, just for whatever they can get out of it, and they will take care of loading it and transporting it over to the recycling center in Claremont. So we're working on cleaning up the highway garage area. And I think it'll look a lot better by the end of the summer. So that's what I've got. Glenn, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
All right.
Bob, can I?
Oh, no. After
Sure?
you.
Oh, thank you. I feel like we haven't talked about this in a while. I'm just wondering if anything has been done about upgrades to the town garage facilities.
Glenn, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be getting together with, Kevin Osgood, and we're gonna come up with a basic design that everybody can bid on. So everybody's bidding on the same thing. And, I guess the grants don't come out until about fall.
Correct.
So you want to wait till more towards the end of summer to do it. That way, when everybody puts in their bids, it'll be more accurate when it comes time to do it.
Okay, and that will be a fully turnkey operation, right?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yep.
Keep me posted on that, Glenn, if you would, and I will start to look into those grants for the fall.
Okay, yeah, that's what we were wondering when the grants actually take effect in the fall, when you have to start applying for them.
Great, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, we want to get it done before before you have to apply for it. But like he said, you want to get it as close as possible to it, so all the bids be accurate.
Great. Can you update me on some signs that you had ordered last fall? I didn't know if those had come in.
Which ones?
I don't know, there was something about a stop sign at the end of 20 Mile Stream Road and also some slow children or something.
Yeah, the stop sign's been put up.
Mm-hmm.
The slow children, that's one for Bailey Mills.
Correct.
I don't know if we got those or not.
Okay,
I'll have to check.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
I do want to add one thing under the repaving. The entire grant is written about tying in all of our flood work that we did. We can see all the patches of Tyson Road. Talking with Glenn yesterday or the day before, we're also gonna do a stretch of Bailey's Mills Road right off Route 106, where it is historically potholed.
Wow.
And there's nothing that we have been able to put in there that will hold, and we don't know what. So we figured maybe asphalt would work if we go out there to the corner, so
Ooh, baby.
that'll be a good.
Wow. I swear, I knew nothing about this.
Right, yeah, right. Right to your.
We're not going clear to the bridge, so we don't get it that far, Lisa, but we will get across to that.
That place is bad.
Yeah.
And I know we have received, Kevin, you did ask about correspondence. We did receive some correspondence regarding the end of Agony Hill Road as well, and I believe Glenn was going to address that.
And he has talked with Gardner.
Yeah, that part is bad.
No?
That area is really bad.
Anything else under other?
Okay, I'm very happy that I can drop my lawsuit and I just have to fight through new tires. This Friday at Reading Elementary School, we're having a food fun in the future of Reading. It's dinner and a discussion. We want everybody in the town of Reading to come. And we want to have a community conversation about the future and what's going on, and give a little bit better description of the different groups in town that are working on different things. And we will have lasagna and hot dogs, and dessert is potluck if anybody wants to bring a dessert. And we're hoping it'll be from 4:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock. And we're hoping to get a big turnout, that we can meet each other and just have conversation with what our desires for the future will be. So please come.
I can only say, Sarah, your timing and my timing are terrible, because on Friday, my grandson has a playoff game in Rutland.
Okay, all right, you're excused.
Just so you know, I'm not just pulling you off.
Yeah, so your grandson's playing, but that doesn't, what does that have to do with you?
I knew somebody would bring that up. It probably wouldn't be as important if it wasn't getting close to the end of our being able to watch it. So,
Absolutely. Family first.
so anyway, any other? Sure.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the field behind my school, where the pavilion is, and who's responsible for mowing that, I guess. Because they've started to mow it, but they don't mow very much. They don't mow the original path that was all the way around. And that might be a
Saying
practice.
that would be through the Woodstock Supervisory Union. We didn't hire anybody to mow, that I know of.
So it's the
That's all
school.
part of the school here.
Okay.
Lisa, do you know?
Yeah, whoever does the lawn, and I don't even know who that is right now. I think Gratis add the paths, but they may be new, so they may not know.
I think it's Mike still.
Is it?
I believe it is.
It was somebody new last year, I think.
No, Mike, it was probably somebody that works for Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
feel
he
like
may
it
not.
changed. It used to get mowed all the way
Yeah.
around, and now it's sort of to the pavilion and to the covered
We should
bridge.
probably talk to Joe.
Yeah. And somebody bush hogged it last year, so maybe the paths aren't quite as clear. I mean, they
Yeah.
look pretty clear to me.
Because, I mean, Hall does their paths a little bit too, but they don't really meet, and it's just kind of it would be nice from a rec perspective to be able to have a continuous path, and I,
Yeah, you should probably talk to Joe, the supervisor union.
Joe, the
4,
supervisor.
5, 7, 1, 2, 1, 3.
What was the last four?
1, 5, 7.
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 3.
1, 2, 1, 3.
I
That's
can't remember
easy.
his extension, but it's
Okay.
Joe.
All right.
John,
Pursue.
you raised your hand.
Yes, where do we stand on the tick treatment for the field? Has one been done yet this year? As I recall, May was the.
It was, I didn't know there were any more. It was all last year. It was, the contract was for last year.
Correct. However, when we discussed the budget for the rec, we had two proposals. One was our budget as is, and then with a increased total for if we continued with the treatments. And I thought we discussed at that point the town would take that over because it's a town facility versus just a
It was
strictly
$1,000.
rec.
There's $1,000 in there.
I think it's like 15
Is it
for
in
the
there?
year or 16, 15 or 1600
Yeah,
for the
there's
year.
$1,000 in the budget for Bartley Field,
Total.
starting next year, July. I don't know if there's anything there for now. The power company, I don't know how much it's gonna cost for that to get happen.
Mhm.
I have talked to them today. Because it's been since 2019, they have to come check everything out.
Yeah. My concern is though, if we're gonna have people working up there, that we should be getting the field treated, as we did last year. But I was pretty certain we had discussed that at the budget, that was the kind of we had our figure for our budget, and then that's what we had settled on, with the town assuming responsibility for the 3 treatments for the year.
May have missed that.
How much of the treatments, do we know?
I think the total for the year was 15 or 1600. Is that
That's something which.
I actually thought it was closer to 1,200 total.
Huh?
I thought it was closer to 1,200 total.
So that's 3 treatments, is that what we
Yep.
did?
Yep.
Once a month, or once every 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's a little spread out. And May's usually the first one, I thought, and then.
Yeah, spring, middle of summer, and the end of summer.
Yeah.
I think is when they did it last year. I can call them if you want.
I think we should.
Yeah,
I think so
definitely.
too, yeah.
That was JP Pest, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you.
And how about treating the people, the workers, if you're concerned about the workers, and saving, to kill a tick, you're gonna have to use something
Permethrin, yeah.
yeah, that's probably not the best thing for pollinators either.
Well,
I'm a
permethrin, I know.
pollinator kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't know what JP uses.
Yeah.
I know permethrin is what we use at work, like on clothing, because it not only repels, it does kill them as well.
Mhm.
But I don't know, I don't recall what they used.
And there's a well up there too, so.
Yeah. All right, get us some information.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other?
No, hope all the moms had a nice Mother's Day.
What's that?
I said I hope all the moms had a nice Mother's Day yesterday.
Huh,
You done?
it don't apply to me.
Nope, it don't. Sure don't. Are we done?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.